Monster Hunter Rise is finally coming to next-gen consoles. I was so hoping that this would be the case because I'm a big Monster Hunter fan, although I barely play it, but I honestly, everybody, I am a fan. I just don't get much time to play these kind of things. But I have it on the Switch, and it's fantastic on the Switch. I think a few episodes ago, we talked about the difference between World and Rise and our enjoyment for the franchise. And at the time, it was getting ported to PC, which was great. And when that news dropped, I was hoping it was like, okay, well, they have to bring it to the next-gen consoles because they had World on there, and that was the first one that was on like the PlayStation and the Xbox. And there is no other real Monster Hunter experience on the home consoles. And finally, because of that PC port, they're bringing that port over to PlayStation 5, Xbox. I think it's on last gen as well. But basically all other platforms, which is fantastic. And finally, we're getting a new Monster Hunter game that is in the 4K, that is in 60 frames per second, or you can play it in apparently 1080p, 120 frames per second if you have a corresponding matching screen and hardware capabilities and whatnot. And this is great, obviously, to see because as much as I love my Switch, it is very, very long in the tooth. And you just think any new games that keep coming out on the Switch, you're like, damn it, how amazing would this look and play if it was just on an Xbox or a PC or a PlayStation 5? And now I get to experience Monster Hunter Rise in its full kind of glory. And not to take anything away from the Switch, it is fantastic on the little Switch, but it does look a little bit ropey at times. Good for the Switch, but compared to other games, especially more modern games, which we have been talking about, it's a little bit rough. But still fun to pick up and play. And now we're getting full-blown, higher textured, higher frame rate, higher resolution. And this game is just going to sing, I think, on that new hardware capabilities and everything like that. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. And I wanted to ask both of you, maybe not for Jamie, because Jamie could obviously pick up on PC if he wanted to, because it's already there. But Sarah, are you tempted to jump into this game on the console when it lands in January?
Possibly. It's one of these things that I've mentioned before that Connor's a huge fan and he keeps trying to get me into it, and I get distracted by all the other games that come out. So I've played like a session of Monster Hunter Rise on PC, and it was awesome. I absolutely loved it. It was quite challenging though. Like there's a lot of elements to the game. And even though, I've played loads of similar things and, people have likened it to like boss fights in a Soulsborne game, which is why I was like, oh, I'm going to love this. There's still a lot of like mechanics behind it that are very different and are very kind of like historical in terms of like, oh, the very first game had this or the second game in the franchise had this. And it's a really complex game, and it's amazing, I think, once you get the hang of it, but I still feel like I haven't got the hang of it, so I need to kind of get over that bit of it, and then I know I'll be obsessed with it. I just know it. I love the idea of it, like, being on console as well, because, I don't know, I haven't played that many mouse and keyboard things, like, in the last 5 years or so. I've been way more console-based, so I'm quite tempted. The only thing that makes me a bit upset is the fact that it's not cross-platform. So if anybody else didn't also pick it up on console, I wouldn't be able to play with other people. So that's a shame. But I do. I like playing with a controller. So what I should just do is plug a controller into my PC and stop moaning. But
stop your bitching. Just plug in the Xbox controller into your PC and you'll be fine.
Okay. Maybe I will.
Try playing Super Meat Boy on a mouse and keyboard, and after that, everything feels fine. You'll be okay.
Super Meat Boy?
Yeah.
Hellish
platformer.
It's a 2D platformer, which is really hard.
Cool. Maybe I'll do that after we finish this.
I'm right with you, though, Sarah. When I read the news that it was coming to new consoles and it was already out on PC, I was like, yes, amazing, excellent. And then they also announced, but there's no cross-save progression, there's no cross-platform play, and I thought, oh, damn it, because whilst I haven't put hundreds of hours into the Switch version, there are players that absolutely have. And though a lot of those players, when it came to PC, started a new character, which is fine, because they get to high resolution stuff like that, put another probably several hundred hours into the PC version, and now it's coming to console, which is amazing. But you can't transfer your characters over. You can't even play with this new audience, which is going to open up because it's not cross-platform play. And that's hugely disappointing.
Yeah.
And apparently I was reading a little bit about it just yesterday. It's like the way it was designed originally for the Switch and subsequently for the PC port is it was never designed to have cross-play as part of its core kind of foundations of when it was being built. So when it was ported, it wasn't designed to support it. And this is just a port of that port. So it's still obviously not as part of a foundation level code base to support crossplay, which is still hugely disappointing because you think nobody's going to create a third character to play on consoles. They've got the Switch version, most likely, and they've got the PC version, and that's where they're sticking to. And whilst it's great that it's coming to console, this is kind of purely just for new players to only play with other Xbox players if you're on Xbox, other PlayStation players if you're on PlayStation, and that kind of thing. So I'm thinking, God damn it, it's on Game Pass, which is amazing for subscribers like myself. But then, realistically, I was thinking, okay, who out of my friends on Xbox is going to play Monster Hunter? And very few. Very few if I'm being realistic. And then I thought, okay, so I'm probably going to have to buy it on PS5 so I can play with Sarah. Because out of anything, Sarah's probably going to get the PS5 version. But then you've got a PC as well. So maybe, I don't know, are you going to play on PC? And then that totally fucks my opportunity to play with anybody.
Oh, it's broken. Why did they do it like this? It's a multiplayer game. Like, surely, like, cross-platform should be something they should be, like, at least looking into, or maybe saying that they might develop it for the future, especially if they're putting it across all different platforms. It just kind of makes sense. I mean, it's interesting that you bring up the fact that it was on Switch and then it was on PC and now it's on these platforms. Like, when we bought it, we intentionally waited for the PC version because we knew more people that would play. And so, like, it is, like, it's a shame that we have to be so tactical with these things, because there would have been people playing it on Switch. I know that Connor was sat there kind of wriggling in anger, like, oh, I want to play it now. I've played every single game, but I'm going to have to wait for the PC version.
Yeah.
I know that, like, it's a shame. Although, I mean, I'm kind of tempted to get it on Switch because I like the idea. Well, I'm starting to get more into it because we're going to be traveling in the new year, which I'll tell you properly about later. We're going to New Zealand for a bit, so
fab.
Anyway, we'll have to work out some sort of another couple of sessions of remote recording, which will be fun, from across the world.
I want you podcasting from Hobbiton. That's where I want you to be podcasting from.
That is not impossible.
Don't dangle the dream. Don't dangle the dream.
The Hobbit-sized carrot. So anyway, so I'm definitely looking for more, like, portable gaming things. So maybe I'll get it on Switch. Maybe I'll get it on PS5. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just stick with PC. I don't know what I'm doing.
Keep us all guessing.
I'll put them all on my Christmas list, and then someone can decide for me.
I know. It's a game that is perfect for crossplay because it's not competitive. It's PvE, so it doesn't matter if a high-end PC running at 120 frames per second is playing with somebody on their party on the Switch, which is only 30 frames per second. That doesn't matter. There's not a massive disparity there because of an advantage, because you're not, it doesn't really matter. You're not trying to kill the person on the Switch. Or maybe you are. Maybe it's like, I'm going to implement a friendly fire mod and just destroy all the other hunters in my party just for giggles. But I hope that they implement it for future titles. I feel like cross platform needs to be a standard rather than a nice to have in 2022 and beyond. I mean, if there's ever a multiplayer game I'm looking at now, I think before I even pick it up, I might pick it up if it's on Game Pass, I'll try it out. But then I'm thinking, okay, is it cross-platform? Because if it's not, then I'll think, well, am I realistically going to want to pick this up? Because it's a nice to have at the moment. Like, so many games do it as a feature rather than a standard, this is what we need to do from the very beginning. I mean, we were playing a little bit of Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. Indie game, right? Very small studio. And they were very clear at the very beginning, this is full crossplay, because they obviously see the advantage to say, let's not segregate our audience base. Let's have it as a maximum size as possible. Everybody can play with each other because it's cooperative only. And that's the kind of mentality I'd love to see it be standardized across the board for all multiplayer games going forward. Yes, there's always going to be the thing where, okay, if we're PvP competitive, it's going to be, I want to be able to turn off PC players joining my game because that's going to be always a disadvantage there.
Yeah.
Which you can do in like Call of Duty and things like that, which is great. But for PvE, cooperative games, it should be standard, just like let everybody play with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that they do that. Help Capcom do that going forward. Anyway, sorry, Jamie, I know you're desperate to jump in here.
No, it's just I agree wholeheartedly. Like, the lack of crossplay in any game at this point really frustrates me. And I grant, obviously, there's going to be times when there's a reason for it that we don't know about, I'm sure. Like, you can't have everything. Where would you put it? But it bugs me. Like, with a game like Monster Hunter, the whole purpose of that is to get your team together and go take down these epic bosses, and it feels great. Like, I played quite a lot of World with my friends, and it was one of the best things ever, was these huge hulking behemoths that would go out and be flipping about all over the place and bashing the crap out of them and getting knocked across the level. Tremendous fun. But realistically, at the moment, like my all of my gaming friends are split across various consoles, systems, and all of that, and it's crossplay that keeps everything together. So the minute that that's taken out as an option, you end up not talking to you got your mate who's desperate to play. You don't talk to him for 2 weeks because he's off playing with someone else playing something else. It's just frustrating as hell.
Yeah.
And I love the Monster Hunter. Like, I hadn't played a lot of entries in the series. Monster Hunter World was my first foray, but I've always liked that.
Same.
I've always liked that like asymmetric type game. Like, I loved it with Evolve and stuff. And obviously this is PvE version, but I love that boss battle type thing. So yeah, it's a cracking game series, but hopefully they'll look into it, because otherwise it's
quick segue and shout out to Evolve by Turtle Rock Studios. Do you think, Jamie, that had Evolve launched maybe this year or maybe even like last year or the last couple of years, it would have done far better because people kind of understand the asymmetric multiplayer genre now, whereas way back then, what was it, mid 2015s or something like that, if it was?
Yeah,
2010s or thereabouts. It was a new thing, and obviously the marketing was horrible. That's a whole other discussion, but it kind of bombed really, really badly, really, really quickly as well. Apart from the ones who were hardcore, they understood it. They had the regular friends to do the full stack of you're the monster, we're 4 hunters against you, and just do like the private matches rather than public matches. You could see it soaring, and it was fantastic. It was great to watch on streams and things like that as well. Great to play, but never really took off, and it's fucking heartbreaking when that happens. Like a really well made game and great concept, but it's just too new. It's too experimental for the mainstream to really wrap their head around it, and then nobody buys in because of really confusing marketing, really confusing microtransactions, which also really fucking killed it really badly. And I would love for that game to try and come back and get. It never will, because they tried to reboot it as a free-to-play and it never took off again. Oh, heartbreaking. So many games fall into that trap.
I would kill to see Evolve come back. My Evolve pin badge set is sat up on the wall beside me somewhere from the press kit. I loved Evolve. I was so fucking hyped for that game, and I love asymmetric multiplayer as well. You look at the success now of Dead by Daylight. Like, that's huge. I know tons of people play that constantly, and it's great fun. Like, being hunted, but it's creepy and it's great. But then when you're the killer, you get to be an absolute douche, which is just fun. So, but you take that. But I think Evolve was a much better example than Dead by Daylight, because it's this huge monster. It's not just this shadowy figure that you're all running away from, like horror element. It's got that sci-fi. It's got that boss battle feel to it, but you're the boss, or one of your friends is.
Yeah.
It's a great idea, and I think it could work again. I think it would need to absolutely step out of the shadow of Evolve and the, yes, myriad problems that surrounded the release and, ongoing play of that game. Like you said, the microtransactions, the marketing was a shit show. Like, it's unfortunate that just went to pot completely. But I think there was definitely an element of it being ahead of its time and catching people too soon, and like not if you're gonna be innovative and come up with something brilliantly new, you need your marketing to be very much on point and hit people with, this is why you want to play this. Because if you don't, it's just new and weird and people get scared of it and don't play it anymore. So
yeah,
it was a whole, like, an imperfect storm of problems that caused that game to slide by the wayside. But I think now, with the success of asymmetric games, and there's a bunch, there's quite a few of them floating about. I know on Steam there are tons of these sort of things. I haven't looked into a lot of them, but lots of indie games trying to do it as well. So yeah, I think the potential's there.
And if you know what, if the dream of a Horizon version of like Monster Hunter comes out, like Sony developed their own one, and whether it is just PvE or they do an option to let you be the monster. Can you imagine getting one of you getting to be the Thunderjaw against 4 other hunters? That would be fucking so incredible. Cool. No, anyway, fantasy dreaming of game formats here would be just amazing. You never know. You never know.
That would be amazing.
But to circle back to Monster Hunter Rise, it's obviously coming out January 20th on PS5, Xbox Series consoles, PlayStation 4, and obviously Xbox One, and part of Game Pass. For console and PC and cloud, which is interesting. And the expansion Sunbreak, which came out on Switch, that's coming in the spring later as well. So that's kind of interesting as well. It allows people to not just immediately dismiss all of the weapons and monsters and things like that in the base game, because it might get superseded by what's in Sunbreak. It allows them to play through the base game, the story, the monsters, level up their characters in preparation for the big expansion, which will come out later on in the year as well for that. And then they can jump into that ready with all of the systems, because as Sarah mentioned, the systems in these games can be immensely complicated, and you really do rely on a lot of YouTube specific channels to say, this is how you make a build for this weapon, and this is how traps work, and this is how baiting works, and this is how tracking works, and all this kind of stuff. And it's amazing to see the variety of different weapons and different builds that you can harmonize and pull together.